YouTube panelist. So just to let you know, and then we're going to do like a quick introduction about you.
There's two of them.
Right.
Hello, Mr. Harris. I think you might just be connecting.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Harris.
How you doing, guys?
We're doing good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. I don't know if you probably missed the beginning, but just to introduce ourselves, I'm Jessie.
And I'm Joanna.
Yep.
First, we just want to start off saying thank you for joining us. We're, again, very honored to have you here to speak with us about all of your experiences. Before we get started, we're just going to do a little brief introduction about you. And yeah. Sorry, give me a second.
Mr. Harris was a senior engineer at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, where he contributed his leadership in developing procedures and implementing processes between the flight team, instrument vendors, and spacecraft vendors. Currently, he is a senior project engineer at the Aerospace Corporation. Named in Forbes 30 Under 30 list of innovators, not only does Mr. Harris channel his expertise in the engineering field, he also personifies Boss Up's energy, helping youths.
Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We're sure our audience is super excited to hear from you, and we definitely are as well. I think we're just going to start with some questions, and then anybody in the audience who has questions, please ask them in our Q&A section. Yeah.
Do you mind giving us like a brief little introduction about your role and what you sort of do in engineering, so everyone else has like a bit of a better understanding?
Yeah, so again, thanks so much for having me today. Let me know if you can't hear me. I've been having some audio trouble, but again, my name's Kenneth Harris. I have been working on project with NASA since I was 16. To kind of put it in perspective for you guys, I'm 28 now, so 12 years in the industry. Just started on my 7th mission, which is a part of the Artemis program, so Lunar Gateway, things that are going to take us back to the moon and eventually put, the first woman and first man on Mars. So really, really cool projects, and not only projects that, observe the universe as a whole, but that also observe our own Earth. So I worked on a number of satellites that help to track natural disasters. So we've done ones that have tracked hurricanes, saved a lot of lives, and also the Amazon rainforest fires, the fires out in California, the brush fires in Australia, things of that nature. So it's really a global effort. And that's really the thing about the space industry that I love. It's international. I get to do conferences like this. I get to speak with people that aren't right next door to me. So like I said, I got in the field really early. It's because of my dad and mentors that I had, and I'll get more into those stories. But I really love the field. A lot of cool projects. I'm more than happy to share my experiences. But thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for giving us like a little brief intro.
Yeah. On the subject of mentorship, what you just talked about, and which you have previously given a TED Talk on, can you talk a little bit about how mentorship has helped shape your path?
Yeah. So mentorship is literally like the most important thing within my career, in my opinion. I mean, obviously my skill set, but at the root of it, it's really my network. It's who I know, who knows me, and how you can kind of plug yourself into different opportunities like that. I know your last speaker spoke a lot about the diversity of getting extroverts and introverts. And I realized that it's harder for introverted people to actually network and get mentors and things like that. But I think it's thus the mentor's responsibility to seek out individuals that they feel have, the qualifications. So, if I see someone that's shy, more reserved, and I think, hey, they'll be great for XYZ roles, it's kind of my responsibility to reach out, just like it's the responsibility of a mentee to reach up and, well, not up, but to reach to a mentor and ask them for assistance and help. But mentorship is literally the most important component that's helped me to get where I am today.
To sort of add on to that, we have a Q&A question from an attendee who is asking, how did you find your mentor? And could you recommend do you recommend teenagers to find mentors?
Yeah, so I like to share this story about finding a a specific mentor. So it's a I have this mentor named Captain Kenneth Reitler. He is a former astronaut and current U.S. Navy professor at the Naval Academy. So the way I went about quote unquote finding him is him and I was attending a conference. I saw he was a panelist at the conference, and don't judge me. You can't judge me. This is a judge-free zone. So, prior to the conference, I actually just went online. I googled a lot about him, a lot about his missions, things he'd done, X, Y, Z, just so I had a host of talking points. So when I came up to him, I had 6 or 7 talking points. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. It wasn't really long, maybe 10 minutes. But what came out of that was I took an interest in what he did and directly connected it to what I was doing. Um, and that's kind of like what you do is you seek out a mentor that when you seek out a mentor, you intentionally have an idea of what they could do potentially in your career, even if it's a general gist of saying, "Oh, Kenny's an engineer. I want to be an engineer." That's not specific, but you still know I'm gonna help in the area of engineering and not the aspect of being a father, for example. Just randomly thrown out there. But from that interaction with Ken, what happened was, that 10-minute conversation just ended with, "Hey, I'd really appreciate it if we could connect again, maybe over email or something like that." I shot him an email, said, "Hey, I'd love to connect over coffee." And him and I have gone out to lunch a number of times. I've come and spoke to his kids at the Naval Academy. He actually helped me complete my astronaut application a few months ago. So we got really really close, and this was a year and a half ago. So we've got really really close, and that's just from again you approaching that person as not only human but also as an experienced professional in the field and knowing about them. In my experience, it's about knowing a little about them in advance and how you'd like them to fit into your life.
Of course. And for like we were mentioning a bit earlier about introverts,
Hmm.
how would you recommend like an introvert who wants to go seek a mentor, especially in like a public setting, from like
Yeah.
a conference or something?
Yeah, that's tough. I'll say that the best way I would say is that I encourage everyone, no matter if you're an introvert or extrovert, to have an elevator pitch. And for those of you that don't know what elevator pitch is, just that 30-second, that 30-second intro of what you do, and then what you hope to do in the future, potentially based on who you're talking to. So I understand that's tough, specifically for introverts or just people that aren't really chatty and stuff like that. But the best thing you can do in that situation is give either an elevator pitch or like a supplemental version of an elevator pitch. It could be 10 seconds and just say, "Hey, I'd love to follow up via email." More than likely at these conferences, everyone has business cards. Like you can give them a business card, they can give you a business card, and then you guys can kind of do that transaction behind the scenes. Via email, you don't have to be speaking in front of people like this, but it still gives you the chance to interact with them because that's the most important part. The most important part is that you interact and that you develop a relationship, which is what a mentor mentee bond is. It's a friendship, and you gotta go about different ways, but it's possible.
I know you've talked just now and also on news articles about how you found your dad to be your first sort of mentor and how he sort of
Yeah,
led into your interest in engineering. Can you expand a little bit on that?
yeah. My dad is my man. So he's 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 first off, he's a great dad. I was really really fortunate to grow up with him, and to have such a strong figure in my life. And when I was growing up, I actually took it for granted. Just because he's your dad, you see him every day. You don't think he's doing super cool stuff. You just like he goes to work, he comes back, whatever. So, and not until I was a teenager, and to my early adulthood that I understand what he was doing and how he balanced being a dad and also going to work and stuff like that. So I think it was kind of important just what I was exposed to at a young age in terms of shadowing him or not even shadowing him at work, just being at work with him after school and me doing my homework while he was doing other stuff. But the most important thing I can say about my dad is that he pushed me um, to not quit. He pushed me in a lot of situations, going through undergrad and graduate degree and now my doctoral degree. He's really pushed me to never quit, to always, because funny enough, my dad in certain ways, my dad is kind of introverted, but then he has like the kind of chatty side to him. But he doesn't really like to branch out and talk to a lot of people. So I didn't get that from him. I think I got that from my mom. but I can talk about my dad all day, but I'll just say I was fortunate, and that was the first step that I believe, in my opinion, exposed me to the world of engineering, and then kind of from there I kind of took it over. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about.
So it was something that like was sort of like bred in the family as well. Just the entire like conversation about engineering.
Yeah, so my dad's an engineer. My mom is more on the financial side, but I mean, my dad never pushed me to be an engineer per se. All he was So the longer story is that I was terrible at math growing up, like absolutely terrible. And I had to just spend extra time in that subject, like when it came to algebra, geometry, whatever the early mathematics are. I had to spend extra time, and because I spent so much time in that specific subject and the other subject, I came to find that I actually enjoyed math, either because I spent so much time on it, or just because I actually came to like it. Regardless, like getting into undergraduate degree, like the degree was really hard to get. And my dad was just like, hey, don't quit. It's okay. It's okay if you want to do something else. You don't have to do engineering. Like I picked engineering because again, I really enjoy math. I wanted to tie it in somehow, but not be a mathematician. And he was just like, hey, if you want to do something else, you can do something else. You can be whatever you want. But my job is to make sure that you don't quit, and to help any way I can to help you reach whatever your finish line is. So yeah.
It was more about like that sort of trait of persistence that was
Yeah.
that was nurtured. Yeah. Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, we have another question from one of our attendees. Why did you decide to move into the space side of engineering? What sparked your interest?
Hmm. Um, I think I think because it was twofold. The first was my desire to. So I didn't say this earlier, but my undergraduate degree comes from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is located in Maryland, obviously, and then in Baltimore. But I there we have a really, really, really diverse population of students there. And even prior to that, I was really exposed to a diverse population of just different people working with different people. And I realized that the space industry, in particular, and pretty uniquely, is an international kind of platform that spans across multiple countries, multiple nations. And there's no shortage of opportunities for you to work with individuals from around the world. For example, my second project was a project called GPM, which is the Global Precipitation Measurement Satellite, and that's a combined effort between NASA and JAXA, which is Japan's equivalent to NASA. And so we got an opportunity to work with them. I got introduced. I didn't get a chance to go to Japan, but I got a chance to connect with their main headquarters office here in Washington D.C. Had a number of conversations with them where we host telecons where we're in completely different time zones, but we're still having these conversations. We need to work toward the eventual launch of these satellites. We become really good friends. It's another story I like to tell, but I'll make it really short. There's an annual briefing that we do in the JAXA office at DC, which is basically like they call you in, they talk about their budget, what they hope to do with satellites, and they just give you like all you can eat sushi all day. And that's what I do, like at least twice a year with JAXA. And so it's about making these international connections with people. It's really what got me into space in particular. I mean, obviously at the very bottom level, I have hopes of being an astronaut, but I feel like that kind of came like afterwards. But it's really about the connection for me. It's about networking. It's about international connections.
Yeah, that sounds like a really fascinating experience. And
Sushi all day, of
Yeah.
course.
we love sushi in Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure this is a question that you actually get asked quite often. How did you sort of get started working with NASA, especially sort of at the age of 16? And how did
Yeah.
it feel to be so young?
So NASA has, well, at the time, NASA had what they call a high school internship program. And I actually got involved with that because the summer or the spring prior, I worked at a summer camp. And I was really there not because of my interest in NASA, but because my little sister was in the summer camp and I had to basically watch her. So I was there. And so basically, one of the camp counselors, one of the higher ups was like, hey, we have this high school internship program. You should really think about applying. I said, sure. So I applied to it. I got in it, and that's kind of where it took off. I again had a great opportunity. My first mission I ever worked on was called MMS, which is the Magnetospheric Multi-Scale Mission. It's a set of 4 tetrahedral satellites that kind of fly in a certain pattern and absorb radiation and blah 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 blah. But nonetheless, I worked in the radiation department, and that was a great experience for me. And because of my relationship with the great mentor that I got at that time, Anthony Sanders, he actually, again, great mentor, set me up to not only come back the next summer, but to also come back throughout the school year, kind of on a voluntary basis. I just basically say, hey, would you like to see the work that you did and how what you're doing is going to impact space and blah blah blah. So I actually would come back during the school year, just at different times. They just set me up with a visitor badge, not visitor badge, I guess like a temporary guest badge that was good for like 6 months, and I would just come after school for free. But it's that was kind of the long-term goal, because if I told a 16-year-old now, like, hey, go to NASA for free, they're not going to pay you. But in 10 years, it'll pay off. Like that, no one wants to hear that. But that's something that I did, and it really, really paid off, and I'm really happy.
Yeah. I think it actually ties into something that we've been hearing from other speakers, and I think it's something that you talk about also, and it's this idea of being curious. I think that's what sort of led to that. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that aspect?
Yeah, I think specifically in the field of engineering, specifically space science, there you can't have a lack of curiosity. You're literally dealing with the mysteries of the universe. Like you can't have a lack of curiosity. If not, you get bored, because with a lot of aspects of space science aren't tangible. Specifically, when they go up into orbit, they're no longer tangible, unless again you're an astronaut. But I think the importance of curiosity should not be what's the word I'm looking for, should not be limited to just when you're in your younger ages, when you're trying to get your footing in the field and stuff like that. It should carry over into your adulthood, and that's what's really going to push you to do these new cool projects. It's what's going to push you to um, um, solve some of the biggest engineering problems that we have. I mean, I understand that we have sent different satellites into orbit before, and at some point it's kind of not mundane, but it's kind of routine, just getting a satellite into orbit. But the way that you send it, or the orbit it goes in, or the scientific data is collecting, that shifts from mission to mission. Even last week, I had a meeting where we were talking about the orbital options and how we plan on like shifting orbits of a satellite, how we have to like send it around the moon for additional velocity. It was a super cool conversation. But again, it's like, I'm curious to say, what if we sent it in the opposite orbit instead of the frontal? That's kind of what I'm talking about. Just keep your mind open, and keep your own uniqueness and what you think, and push it into your field.
I think that's like you said, prevalent to any field that people are venturing in.
Yeah.
Let's first answer this question. We've got like a question from another attendee who asked, what's been your favorite project so far? Like just in general. It could be.
Oh man, I like answering this question, but then I don't. For example, how parents aren't supposed to have favorite children. I have a favorite mission. It's it's the James Webb Space Telescope. It's the follow up to the Hubble Space Telescope. I got the opportunity to actually lead an effort to integrate that, which is kind of my claim to fame, which is why I get a chance to do cool stuff like this. That's how I got on Forbes. How I got on all these other lists, is because when I led that effort to integrate the electronic component box for the satellite, I was 24. And that's a really young age, specifically for leading stuff at NASA. And my team put a lot of trust in me to get that done. And I'll say that again, that it's my favorite mission, because again, it was really, really personal in that sense. Like it was kind of like the place I had to prove myself, and the place I really, really stretched myself to accomplish a lot. But James Webb is my favorite mission. Again, not only for what it'll do, discovering the first stars near the Big Bang, but just also the sheer magnitude of the project, and just being able to say like, oh, I worked on that, and I got some really cool like clips and pictures and stuff for that. So years from now, I can like brag to my kids like, that's me.
Yeah, on sort of the subject of your kids, congratulations to
Thank you.
you and your wife for
Thank you.
your baby son about a month
Thank you.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just welcomed him a month ago, and you're right now speaking with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you. And I think this is a very prevalent question for a lot of people, which is how do you sort of find the balance between work and personal life?
Good question. And again, I think that comes from knowing yourself. You have to know your own personal limits. No one knows that except you. You know, listen to your body. If you're tired, go to sleep. If you're hungry, eat. It's just kind of that basic. But I would say you have to know when to say no in certain situations. You can't say yes to everything that's brought up to you, whether it's work and whether you're just trying to make it for yourself at work. It's still important to, and if COVID's taught us absolutely nothing, it's important to listen to your body, to not put work as your 100% priority in any situation. I understand that's kind of like your means of survival. That's how you get the money to provide for your family, XYZ. But there's a limit. There's definitely a limit to what you're doing. Don't have a cutoff. So, for example, if I get an email after 5:10 on the weekend, on the weekday, I'm like, no, that's tomorrow. If I get an email over the weekend, it's a no. I'm not replying until Monday unless it's something that I dropped the ball on in terms of, oh, I didn't follow with this throughout the week. But if it's throughout the weekend, it's like, no, I'll get to you on Monday. And that's kind of how you set the precedence for not only your team, but supervisors in this case. It's kind of reverse psychology, because most people think, oh, I need to do exactly what my supervisor says. But at the same time, you have to, your supervisor, if any good leader, I can say this as a leader, any good leader knows how to allow the people that they manage to also have their own life and to also make sure they don't get burnt out. So, don't do so much that you're trying to please this one individual, because really that individual is trying to just please a personal, like everyone's trying to climb the ladder. So if you make that person look good, all you're really doing is making that person look good to their person, and they'll just move up, if that makes sense. So, so, know how to say no is kind of the base answer I was going for.
There is this sort of mentality among leadership that saying no or setting limits sometimes can lead to feeling guilty. I don't know if that's something that you've combated yourself, or if that something that you can maybe share your take on,
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
guilty.
I don't think you're gonna like my answer. I'm saying no, I don't feel guilty about it. I'm just like, no. It's just something that you have to accept. Like, if if I say I cannot work on this project because I have to do XYZ, and you can't respect me saying that because you, for whatever reason, it's kind of like, okay, well, then I'll just switch jobs. That's honestly my opinion. Like, I'm not a a big person to say I'm staying with this job just because they want to, like, I believe there's a difference between being overworked and doing your actual job. So in terms of feeling guilty, no, because at the end of the day, if you're on a team where you are working in tandem to reach a certain goal, and there are certain expectations set, if something outside of those expectations are met, if something, let me start over. If something outside those expectations are requested, they should be under the assumption that you can say no, and there'll be no consequence for that. Like, you have the freedom to say no, because that is outside of the scope of what we talked about. Now, if it's inside the scope, that's a different story. Then that's your job, that's your responsibility. But if it's outside of that, if it's outside of that, then I don't agree with that. And again, it's about at that point, it's about self-preservation, it's about your own health, it's about your family, it's about XYZ, long-term things that go further than your job. So that's kind of my opinion on it. Don't take work too seriously.
Right.
We have sort of another question. This
Yeah.
ties back into your point about curiosity. What would you tell teenagers who are curious about different things but don't know sort of how to approach their curiosity?
Hmm. Um, I think it depends on what we're curious about. So I'd say, good.
I was like, if we could be a bit more specific, for example, students who want to like pursue engineering in the future? Are there some like, I'm sure there's no like definitive like golden rule, but like are there any steps that you would recommend them taking so that they can like sort of test the waters, because it
Mhm.
is like sort of a heavy field.
Yeah. So fortunate thing is that in today's kind of society, and just like how I grew up, the internet is extremely vast. Like there's nothing you can't find on the internet. But the one thing I'd say is like the best way to test the water is obviously an internship. But again, I say internship like they're super easy to get. I realize internships aren't super easy to get. So again, the best way to do is to test the waters with the internship. The second thing is obviously to have a conversation with someone who is already in the field. Ask to shadow them, ask to kind of pick their brain. Shadowing someone even for 1 or 2 days can be just as informative as an internship, in my opinion. It doesn't exactly give you the hands-on experience, but again, it gives you a further peek into that person's world, where most people on the surface can say, oh, I shadowed you probably can't shadow a surgeon with no experience, but let's just say you shadow a surgeon. I shadow a surgeon and there's a lot more blood than I thought. I don't want that. Like that's kind of what I'm getting at. So internship, shadow people, obviously browse the internet. There's a lot of videos out there that just, engineers, different people saying, oh, this is a day in the life of an engineer, and they kind of walk through it. That's of course not as personal, but that's also something you can do as well. Um, for those people that are looking for monetary reasons, you can look up salaries now to say, if I'm an engineer, I'll make X amount. If I'm a doctor, I'll make X amount. Let me see how else. But for me, the best way that I do it, if I was still young, I'm so old. If I was still young, would be I would really reach out to someone via social media. In all honesty, I've got a lot of people that reach out to me via just my Instagram and say, hey Kenny, you're an engineer. What do you think about this? Just a one liner, and that's how we approach it. But there's a number of different ways. It's no, like you said, it's no golden rule. But the best thing you can do is kind of put a foot forward and show that you have the initiative to do it. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, for anybody in the audience who does want to follow Mr. Harris or wants to ask him questions, his Instagram, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, is Kenny, KENNY, F Harris, HARRIS.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
We'll type it out. We have another question in our Q&A section. What has your experience been like being a Black man working for NASA? Do you think that NASA and the engineering field in general is very diverse, or do you think that there's still room for improvement?
Good, no, yes, in that order. It's been a great experience. I'll say, as NASA continues to evolve, I'll say that there's constantly the conversation of what more can we do as humans, as a culture. What more can we do? But it's been a great experience, in my opinion. It's not, the field of engineering isn't super diverse, not only when you look at African Americans in particular, but when you just look across the board, women and all other races and things of that nature. You don't see it. I forgot the stats, so I won't even say them, but it's not as diverse as you think. And what makes it one step worse, in my opinion, is that those people that do qualify as diverse don't really make their presence known. So, for example, if you think I'll take me personally. So if you think African Americans in engineering that are actively using like a social media platform to tell people about themselves, there's not a ton outside of me. I personally can't think of 10. I personally can't think of 10. And for me, I feel like it's a responsibility to, if you have this great career, or if you feel you have a great career, it's your responsibility to make it known, and thus try to get mentees. Like, it's not only a mentee's responsibility to get mentors, it's a mentor's responsibility to get mentees. And that's kind of like a give and take. I know there was another part of the question. I can read it here. Do you think? Oh, yes. Yeah, I always think there's room for improvement. We as humans are constantly learning. You you have to take every experience, with a grain of salt and just say, hey, I learned XYZ from this. This is how I can get better and move forward in that regard. And, you know, for me, it's not really like a black and white issue. It's more of just how are we preparing the next generation to be better than us? What steps are we actively taking to make sure that my son, your children, you have children, don't have the same problems that we are experiencing. And that I feel as though is our responsibility.
Yeah, and we know that you are actually running for the Board of Education
Oh
in,
yes.
yeah. Is this also due to your own belief that like various people should all get sort of mentors?
Um, so the Board of Education thing comes from my desire to impact education. Outside of my job, I've always made it a point to um, kind of push internships, push internship programs, because I realize, again, that's how you get your foot in the door. That's how you start your network. And if I can, in some way, give these students a leg up on everyone else, then I wish to do that, because I realize that, or just to, even talk to them. Like I said, when I was 16, no one outside of my mentor said to me, hey, you should again think about doing XYZ. You should think about doing XYZ, which was so different than what everyone else my age was doing, that of course, obviously I rebelled against it and said, no, I'd rather not do that because no one else is doing it. But I didn't see the long term that, this 4-year-old at the time was telling me. Um, and I think if more people let the younger generation know to look long term rather than short term, they can really kind of set themselves apart. Um, so yeah.
Say your vision for like education is making like internships more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and even now, NASA has been working on a new internship program that we're trying to directly target diverse populations to give them again, um, some sought after experience and things of that nature. So I feel, and I sit on the board for that, so I realized that it is a necessity. NASA. I just have to speak to NASA specifically because that's where I come from. But NASA as a whole, should again be putting more money into the next generation. I mean, they do. They put a lot into it, but there can be more strategic ways to do it, in my opinion. So yeah, and I know. I mean, I know CSA does the same thing. I know they're trying to ramp up to do the same thing. So again, international playing field, and I'm happy to see more people having the discussion about it.
It's like such big institutions. I feel like they could offer a lot for the new emerging generations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have another question from one of our attendees. They say that I feel like many internships are in the US and aren't open to Canadian residents. And sort of add on from me, I think this could also be just applied to people who are interested in space in general, not necessarily just from Canada.
Okay.
What would you recommend for students who are looking for these internships or opportunities?
That's a tough one, and I'm gonna tell you up front, I don't have the answer, but this is an opinion. My opinion is that I know specifically to work for the NASA agency, I know there's red tape around not having specific U.S. citizenship, for example. But you can work with a host of contracting companies that span the lines internationally. So there's a lot less red tape when you deal with a contracting company as opposed to an official, U.S. government agency. So for people that are it's from we'll take Canada specifically that are trying to be involved more in the space industry. Like I said, I don't know how far CSA's kind of grasp is in the space industry. Well, no, sorry, I know how far the grasp is. I don't know how involved they are with internships, is what I meant to say. Um, but I'll say that my suggestion would be to look at contractors that work across the board and find out if they have internships, or contractors or even subcontractors, because a lot of times Because the size of NASA projects or CSA projects or JAXA projects are so large, they oftentimes, outsource them to either universities, subcontractors, contractors, so that you might just be working with like a microprocessor, but that goes on James Webb, for example. And that again is experience to say, I worked on James Webb on this microprocessor. As long as you can explain what it does, doesn't matter if you worked at a small company or a big company. I started off specifically at a small company and then kind of moved along. But sorry, I said I didn't have the answer.
Just before we ask this question, I just had a.
Yeah.
Right now, you're working with aerospace.
Yeah.
Could you give us like a insider look on what sort of the tasks are?
So Aerospace Corporation, I haven't been with them a ton of time, but extremely happy with being with them. They so their portfolio is not entirely space by any means. Like it spans to our Department of Defense, it spans to like our Army, Navy, things of that nature. So it's more so a uh, project expert, research expert, kind of hub for defense, but it crosses over into space, which is why I'm involved with it. Whereas my experience, kind of straddles the line between space and defense. They have kind of both subsidies. It's the same thing with Raytheon, which is another U.S. company. They kind of straddle the line between defense and space. But aerospace, like I said, their portfolio is really extensive. It allows you to go a lot of different places in terms of if you want to work defense, if you want to work weapons, if you want to do cybersecurity, blase, blase. Space is really like a small component. I think space is probably 12% of their portfolio. But it's a great 12%. It's the best 12%, I'll say.
And then the question that now we're going to answer from an attendee, I'm going to quote them. They asked, do you think it's an unrealistic career path to go into a space-related job if you don't have a lot of connections within that industry?
No, I'll say it's not. Wait, am I answering that right? Hold on. Do you think it's? Oh no, it's not unrealistic. No, okay, it's not unrealistic. For me, again, going in with an appetite to succeed is what I think you need. The space industry in particular is exceedingly friendly in a sense. You'll notice that not everyone, but people that I've gravitated toward have the real um, intention of making sure that you succeed. So I would say you don't have to go in with a network by any means. What you have to go within is the appetite, the intention of speaking to pretty much everyone that you meet, like literally everyone. And even if you're an introvert, that just means, like I said earlier, exchange business cards with everyone you meet or get everyone's email address. Like even if it's just a 2-word or say, hey, hey, I'm Kenny. I just started here. I had a few questions. Do you mind if I email you? They'll probably appreciate that a lot more because they're probably exceedingly busy and don't have time for a full conversation. So I would say that it's all about your personal motivation. How much are you how different are you willing to be than everyone else to set yourself apart as you enter this new space? Because if I went into the field of, oh God, I don't know, animal science, I have like no connections there. But again, I get in there and I talk to everyone until I develop a new network in animal science. So again, it's about your own motivation. Set yourself apart, be different, and be I don't want to say it like it's a competition, but it kind of is. Be the absolute best that you can be, while still encouraging people around you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, going back to sort of you being the lead of the NASA Goddard space flight thing, you were 24 when it happened. How did you sort of set yourself like as a leader at 24, and how did you make sure that people had listened to what you were sort of saying?
Yeah, so that was kind of like, honestly, that was kind of the stars aligning, no pun intended. We I've been working on that project for a number of years, probably well, no, ever since I graduated from college, I've been working on the project up to that point. So there was a number of procedures and different tests, and finally the integration that we had to do. So when we actually had to do the integration, or right before the integration, the the guy that was leading it, so I was his second, or it was three of us that were right below him. He got another job somewhere else. It was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. He's like, hey, I got to take this job and I got to leave like this week. And so everyone on the project was kind of scrambling and saying, okay, who do we know that can do what I'll call him Chuck, for example. Who can do what Chuck was doing because he's leaving, and if we push this integration, it'll set back the whole project further. Um, and so, my name came up at a meeting and I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Well, no, that's not true. I didn't say I'd do it. The first time I said, no, I won't do it. Then I came back and said, I'll do it. So I said, sure, sure, I'll do it. I spent like a week and a half, like reading up and making sure I actually understood everything to its absolute extent. And we got in the clean room and we did what we needed to do. But again, it was really a group effort. Like when you're leading an effort like that in the clean room, you're really just kind of the point person for, your techs doing stuff, contamination doing stuff, and you're making sure that everything's kind of just running like a well-oiled machine. So, you'll say, hey, this connector needs to go here, check its voltage, check its torque, blase, blase. Okay, check, sign the paper. Fit check, blase, blase. But it's kind of like a regiment you have to get into. And because you're working on a piece of hardware that's, $13 billion, you're like, oh, that's it's kind of nerve-wracking in a sense. But again, the stars aligned. My team had an amazing amount of faith in me, and I again had to go in there and prove myself in this situation. But I think it was part of just being prepared, in all honesty, and being at the right place at the right time and having a great team that could support me.
I see. Do you think, like, looking back, there are any like characteristics or certain traits that were kind of developed during that time? Like, for example, communication. Like, I didn't expect like your work, that project, to involve that much like communication between like yourself and your team.
Hmm.
I mean, for me, it always seems like a little more independent,
Oh,
like
okay.
engineering field, but like I guess that's my
Yeah.
misconception. If you can,
Yeah, yeah. But so by no means is anything I've worked on independent. I mean, outside, like, well, no, even writing a document, and if I could show you, even writing a document, there's like 8 people that have to sign off on it after 45 people have reviewed this document. So by no means is it an individual effort. It's very team based. But I will say that, um, having a team that's diverse in their skill sets is really beneficial because they have different experiences, they have that different skill set, and you can kind of pull on them to say, hey, I don't understand. Like, you just have to be upfront and honest. Even though you're the leader on this, it's okay to say, hey, this area is a little gray to me because of XYZ reasons. Now, don't have complete lack of knowledge on the topic, but again, don't be afraid to say, I don't understand something, because not saying I don't understand something is what gets us in situations where something's done wrong, and it takes more time to undo what you did wrong because you wouldn't say I don't know what I'm doing. So it's very, very heavily team based, which is again why it's team based, but again, that communication effort, because um again, working in that those clean rooms, kind of bunny suit situations, had to have an amazing amount of teamwork because it's kind of loud in the clean room sometimes. Sometimes we use hand signals when we're lifting stuff. So that's kind of like a physical communication, but also, just your normal day-to-day job communication is important as well. So definitely no shortage of team efforts in the space field, I'd say.
Yeah, I think communication is something that's quite important just every day, even if you're working by yourself and especially if you're not. You had mentioned just earlier that you had actually said no the very first time. Could you explain a little bit about why you did that?
Yeah, because I was young and said, "Hey, no, I don't want it." Well, okay, so the long story is, I was 23 when they asked me. By the time we had finished integrating, it was like 6 months, 7 months later, and it passed my birthday, so I'm 24. When they asked me to do it, I said I was already doing, like, I already had a full time. I already was working on that same project, but also another project at the same time. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of busy. I'd rather not, like, I don't want to overextend myself. Um, and, they say, okay, well, we can shift around your hours so you won't be overextended and you can still, function doing this while still doing what you're doing. I said, okay, that's fine. But this is extensively more responsibility than the job classification that you hired me for. Basically, in a sense, I was saying that I need more compensation to do a project like this because the guy quit and now you want me to lead it, but you want me to lead it and not be compensated for leading it. And we had the conversation. They said no, there wouldn't be an additional compensation for it, and I said no. I was like, I don't want to work more for the same amount of money. Again, being young for the monetary reasons. I told one of my mentors this, and he told me, "You need to call them back and tell them you'll do it like immediately." So I ended up doing it. I ended up doing it, and again, that was again one of those situations where they said you need to look at the long term here and not just the short term of you getting $5,000 more, for example. Like you need to look at the long term here and say, what does this mean for your career if you actually finish this integration, if you actually can add this to your portfolio? And again, really glad I had him in my life because wouldn't you know, wouldn't be doing a lot of stuff I was doing without a project like this. And again, that's kind of like my claim to fame now. It's one of the reasons again that I believe it's one of the reasons that I am actually well known in the field outside of starting NASA early. It just helps to have like big portfolios or big projects like that on your resume. But that's why I said no. It was monetary, purely monetary.
I see. Thank you for that. Do you think that experience like impacted you like in the future to like like to almost like recklessly say yes?
Um, I
Always
won't
like
say
tend to say
I,
yes?
I won't say recklessly say yes, but it does make me think situations through more. And not only thinking them from the monetary point of view, but from the time management point of view and stuff like that. So I'll say that again, I don't, I have no problem saying no to it, but at the same time, I do take kind of a calculated risk to say saying no means what, or saying no might mean what. And again, I'm kind of upfront with people to say, hey, you have this opportunity for me. Okay, I need X amount of days to think about it. A, because I want to think about for myself. B, I want to run it by a mentor or two to say, what do you think about this? And actually kind of seek their advice on that because, I have them in my life, you know, because they have that experience. Why not, pick their brain on it and, to see to kind of see what else is lining up. But I don't think recklessly saying yes is the answer in this particular situation. There are times where that's fine, but in this particular situation, I just like to think more of the long term nowadays.
Right, thank you. Do you want to do
Yeah, we have quite a few more questions from our attendees.
No problem. I'm
Um,
here.
yeah. Firstly, what do you think is the best piece of life advice that you have for us? Or what's sort of the one thing you would want us to take away from your talk today?
Life advice. This is so hard. What's the age group for this? Undergraduate, high school?
Around high school, undergrad
Okay.
students, usually.
Oh, okay. I got one for you guys. So I think it's two, but I might come back to the one. Um, what I'd like to tell you all is that not only are you the next generation of explorers, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a chef, whatever, you are the next big person, big thing in your field, believe it or not. It's about what you do today, what you do tomorrow, and what you ultimately set yourself up for in the long term that will determine how successful you are. Again, you definitely have to set yourself apart. Again, not thinking about it from a competitive state of mind, but thinking about it from a how can I better myself to the utmost today? Am I going to, if I know everyone else my age is reading one article a day, am I going to read 5 articles a day? Am I going to, XYZ, XYZ? How can you put your best foot forward day in and day out? And again, as you succeed, which I know you all will, as you succeed, as you continue to climb this ladder, remember that it's much bigger than you. It's your responsibility to give back. to someone else, no matter what. No matter what, it's your responsibility. And that's the only thing that I ever ask any of my mentees is to, I don't say, hey, I'm charging you for the time I'm talking to you, blah, blah. Actually, that's a side note. I hate when people do. But, I'm not saying I'm charging you for the time I'm talking to you, whatever. I'm just saying, hey, when you become successful again, which I know you will be, it's your responsibility to find 2, 3, 4, 10, however many you can manage, that many amount of students, and pour back into them to say, hey, you guys are great. These are steps that you can take to, again, be great, but also look out for these things, these stumbling blocks, whatever, that are in your way that I personally tripped over, but I don't want you to trip over. So those are my two things. Outwork everyone in the room. And so outwork everyone in the room, and it's bigger than you are the two things that I'd say.
Like outwork everybody, but once you outwork them, still try to help everybody else.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, it's not from the competitive point of view, but
Right,
like
of course.
literally like we're all in this together, but I'm trying to better myself as much as I can.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to ask that?
We can maybe have time for one more. This one from this attendee, they asked, how do you talk to people who push down others in order to get what and where they want?
Ooh, what's the first part of the question again? How do I what?
How do you talk to people who push down others?
Um, how do I talk to them? First, I guess the first thing I'd say is that that's not the way to do it by any means. I feel like, and it's kind of weird because, being in engineering like my whole career and then taking this step left into politics, you kind of see the difference. And I'm not really someone that's for stepping on someone else to get where you are. I'm all about giving equal opportunity across the board. Um, Now, if again, there's one position to fill, that doesn't say to step on someone to get to the position. It's to merely say, make sure you're more qualified than the next person. Like it's as simple as that. If you are more qualified, you're more qualified. But so the question, how do I talk to people like that? First thing I tell them no is that's not how to do it again. Um, I'd encourage them if I could to kind of change that mindset, to change the mindset of kind of the crab in a barrel metaphor, of when one's trying to climb up, they're kind of pulling the other ones down. Not to have that kind of thought process, because again, that gets no one nowhere. In my opinion, I think again it's much bigger than you. And how are you setting yourself and everyone else up for success in the future? It's a difficult question, but I understand you run into people like that. I would say kind of say what you need to say to them, and just let it go. Don't dwell on it too much is what I'd say.
Yeah. You had also just talked about how you would try to encourage them to change their sort of ways.
Yep.
Especially for someone who, let's say, is like around your same age or around your same peer group. How would you
Yep.
say you would try to change them?
How would I try to change someone in my peer group? It's a good question. But again, I'm a lead with don't dwell on it, because there's really only so much you can do to shift someone's opinion. And it's not necessarily your responsibility to put that much energy and effort into shifting someone's opinion, unless that's your own personal decision to do. For me, I'm one of the people that is going to talk to you once or talk to you twice and then kind of let it go, because it's not really my responsibility to change the way that you think. But you can speak to experiences that you have. You can speak to how what they're doing might affect someone negatively. Um, you can speak to again that long term of thinking about about their actions, your actions, XYZ. But again, talking to a peer and getting them to change their mind on something, that is sometimes a fight that's better left unfought, in my opinion. At least from my experience. Like there's been times where when I was young, I tried to change the opinion of some of my friends on certain things, and it was just kind of a non-starter of the conversation. So I say try. If it doesn't work, let it go.
Yeah, I definitely think that's good advice for, no matter which environment you're in, if it's like work or like school with just friends or anything. We have one more question, if you don't mind. This one seems a bit like out of place and like we're shifting gears a bit, but this question is asking, what does a typical day look like for you?
So I guess I need to answer that twofold. Sorry, the answer that twofold. So now it looks like this. Like this is my day now. We have our meetings online. We answer emails. We have teleconferences, things of that nature. So I'm usually sitting in this spot doing doing this. Well, not this, but virtual conversations. A day before COVID would look something like, get up, get dressed, go to work, get in the office. I'd still have a number of meetings, but well, specifically on my project, I feel like I needed 3 examples, but I'll make it short. Working on my specific project now is a lot of documentation, meeting with customers, kind of providing my expertise to different people. So it's a lot of meetings. I would travel to different states to kind of check on our hardware and stuff like that. So I get walkthroughs of our clean room, really cool environments, and networking was a big thing of what I did just across the project, across the vendor space, things like that. Prior to that, James Webb is probably something that they're alluring to a little more. A day in the life of James Webb was go to work, have a briefing about what we're going to do in the clean room, fully bunny up in that clean room suit, realize you have to go to the bathroom, unbunny, go to the bathroom, come back, re-bunny up, go into the clean room. You're really in there from the morning until lunchtime, leave for lunch, integrate, do a bunch of stuff before lunch. You leave for lunch, come back, re-bunny up, go back in, integrate some more, do some tests. But kind of when you're out there on the floor, it's not constantly integrate. It's like integrate, then we're waiting to like have the test check, have contamination check it. So we're kind of sitting around for like 45 minutes to get back up, do what we need to do, sit back down 45 minutes. But it's too much work to ungown every time you have that 45-minute break. So you just be in that bunny suit for pretty much the whole day, which was actually not as bad as you thought. Because in COVID now we have to wear masks everywhere, but I'm used to it because we were always wearing masks in the clean room anyway. So yeah, I think that's what they're learning too. That's probably the more interactive component.
Thank you for that. That's like
Yeah.
something I would never have known. That is it for the questions that we got from the attendees.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we have for time today. But we just wanted to, again, thank you so much for joining us. We learned actually so much from not just engineering the field, but also leadership, work, and life balance.
Yeah.
So everything was very useful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we have a attendee who's just telling you that they are also very thankful for sharing your experiences and expertise. We completely agree. We're extremely honored to have you, as we were talking about previously. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Again, thanks so much for having me. You two are amazing for doing this conference. I'm just going to shout y'all out real quick. Y'all are amazing for doing this conference.
Thank you.
Great, well organized. Thanks for reaching out to me. I love the opportunity. I would be more than happy to do anything like this, even in a smaller setting for you all for any reason. Just let me know. Let me know what you need from me. Do you all want to do like a little video for Instagram real quick?
Let's do it.
That'd be awesome.
We'll probably also be posting. We've been recording all of the interviews with all of our speakers, and we'll probably be shortly posting them on YouTube as well. And we will definitely send the link to you. Yeah, when that gets
no problem. Just let's do just each of you say your name, say what the conference is, and real quick what we talked about. Instagram. 15 seconds. Ready? 3,
Hey
2,
guys.
1.
Oh. Hey,
One more time.
All right, we'll try again.
On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey guys. I'm Joanna.
I'm Jessie. We're the co-founders of
Boss Up Summit, where we invite amazing speakers like Mr. Kenneth Harris to come talk to us and speak to us about all of his experiences about being a leader.
Yeah, and today we were really honored to talk to Mr. Harris, and we learned a lot about engineering, career opportunities, work-life balance. So it was a really great opportunity. Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. All the best to you, Mr. Harris. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We're
gonna wait on our next panelist.
Yes.
I think they're logging in, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we